Welcome back to another episode of Wrist Check Podcast.
Yes.
This is a casual one, just getting together, kind of recapping what's been going on in the watch world.
Yep.
For a couple of weeks. Olympics just ended. Some interesting news on the horizon. I think good for parties involved that we'll get to in a conversation about Hodinkee, and I know you got some other stuff for us. But before we get started, we have to have honorary wrist check. I'll go first and share. I am wearing a recent acquisition I got. You might have seen on the episode with Any Archibong. It is the 5140 Patek Perpetual calendar. It's funny. I never really considered that when I got this watch, it would be an everyday wear, but I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah. It's an everyday flex.
It's, and I like to dress it down a bit. It's fun. So I'm having a really good time with this. What do you got on the wrist today?
Very special timepiece, as they all are. Depending on where we will be in time, this watch may be new or it may not be new, but I'm wearing my birth year date just all steel with the white gold bezel and this beautiful Vignette blue dial.
Also a recent acquisition.
Yes. So new add to my collection, one that I definitely was on the hunt for. This watch is very special to me as my dad owned something very, very similar. The diamonds adds that subtle touch of quiet luxury. I've shared on a few publications and amongst friends how much acquiring this watch meant so much to me. It's 36 millimeter, the way that
way it should be. Classic.
Yeah, classic watches, the way it should be, especially during this time. I mean, what other choice did I have, right?
Right. No, it's a good piece. I'm glad you got that watch. My heart goes out to vintage Rolex. I think is the best. I think a 36 millimeter Datejust is also just perfect.
Yeah.
Definitely not upset about that one. That's a good one. So getting into it, Hodinkee.
Yes.
Shout out to our friends and family over at Hodinkee.
Yes.
Recently sold Crown and Caliber.
Yes.
Now, when the news originally dropped, they didn't announce that they had sold, this brand. It was a bit of a cryptic message on part of the brand. And then Ben Clymer wrote an article talking about returning to the good days at Hodinkee and sort of saying that, long gone will be the days where we are trying to sell you watches.
Yes.
Where you're getting emails about pre-owned.
Yes.
So I want to talk originally about, I guess, initially, how do we feel about Hodinkee sort of getting back to their roots and focusing on stories?
I think it's very exciting. Hodinkee has definitely been the North Star in terms of just watch media or watch influence, where we get our information, where we get our influence, where we get our passion.
Right.
Hodinkee is definitely a brand that has influenced so many people to actually want to get into watch content.
Facts.
Watch media. We're huge fans of them.
Or even just collecting watches. I mean, I think what they did for the culture was huge. I remember, I go back to like what Ben said when he was here. He talks about how John Mayer said that Hodinkee democratized watch collecting because prior to Hodinkee, it was about what you could afford.
Yes.
And post Hodinkee, it's really about what you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also like a huge thing. I think the idea of collecting watches has changed a bit, right? You don't have to have that grand complication paddock to consider yourself a collector.
Not at all.
You don't have to spend.
I'm almost embarrassed I'm wearing this now.
But there's still a place in your collection, right, for $50 watches, $500 watches.
Yeah, I was wearing a Casio just the other day.
Yeah,
A1000.
Yeah, which also kind of stems from just the essence. Like if you've been doing this for as long as you have, especially us collecting at young ages, you're talking 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, there's no way that you're wearing a Rolex on your wrist. So you're wearing a Casio, you're wearing a G-Shock.
Yeah, of course.
You're wearing a Flick Flack, a Swatch. You're wearing those pieces that I would have to say is accessible to all and enjoyed by all, no matter what level of collecting you're at.
No, and they've really done that for the culture. You know, I was definitely happy to read Ben's message. I think it was timely because they found themselves in a space where it felt like it was becoming more about what we can sell you, as opposed to
what we can tell you.
No, it's a great way of putting it. And they're in a place right now where we know what they've went through. Yes, they've downsized a bit, but they still have an incredibly talented crew of writers.
Yes.
Shout out to our friend Mark, is writing some amazing stuff over there right now. Malika just recently dropped an episode. I mean, not an episode, an article about if baguette watches might be seeing the end of their trend. So there's really like a lot of really great stories coming out of Hodinkee still. It's great to see Ben back active in that way. You know, I can't wait to read some more articles that he puts out. But I was really, really happy to hear about them going back to what made them who they are.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Now, as for the Crown and Caliber situation, I think it's safe to say we think that was a good move.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I totally get them trying to capitalize off of the moment, that we had 2 years ago. Watches where it was like everything was sort of, you could flip your grandmother's,
you found a watch in a sock drawer.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you could flip anything.
Yes.
And consumer habits at that time, like people were just buying up watches like it was nobody's business.
Yes.
And they were buying everything. But it was interesting to me when they purchased this pre-owned business. I always felt like Hodinkee, and I think that they should exist in the watch retail space.
Yes.
But I feel like they had an opportunity, during that time to maybe be, still a authority on pre-owned watches, but I don't think they had to take any inventory on. I think they could have done a consignment situation and maybe invested in authentication, because we see that's like a thing now, right? And you got a lot of companies popping up, and many of them do it very well. Shout out to our friends over at Bezel.
Yes.
They do it exceptionally well. I've purchased watches from them. I have tons of friends, and we have members of our audience who have purchased watches from them. But I think they sort of missed out on the opportunity to do that. I think they'll have an opportunity to do something like that in the future if they want. But that wasn't who they were.
I was gonna say the same.
Right?
I was gonna say the same, because that's really not what I think the traditional follower of Hodinkee is looking for. I think they're looking for cool stories. I think they're looking for authenticity. I think they're looking for a place that is safe for them, right? To enjoy their hobbies, because we all know that collecting watches, right, is weird for some people, or to even like talk about watches. I laugh with friends that aren't into watches as much, and they're like, where did this all stem from? Like, you guys talk about watches, and Hodinkee was always a place for us to nerd out.
Oh, for sure.
Them getting into the retail side of the business, I think, to your point, right, it's, in theory, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But they had to go back to the drawing board and see how they'd be able to make it make sense for them. And maybe diving all the way in and buying a retailer might have just been a little too deep.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think, listen, if I were in their shoes, I might have done the same thing. There was a lot of opportunity there. They had just gotten a recent, they did another sort of like investment run. And, when you have a startup, that's always the thing that you face, right? Like, do you invest in the future? Or do you invest in an opportunity that exists right now to put that money to use to generate more revenue so that you can secure your future?
Yeah.
Essentially, right? And it's less of a bet. And it was a gamble I think a lot of different companies took. They took it. I think, though, what nobody's talking about, Hodinkee gets a lot of bad flack about all of this that transpired. But I think the piece that people are missing is that they've built a strong enough brand that can withstand that event.
Yes.
Right? Like what they went through could have killed a lot of brands. It would have killed a lot of brands.
Yes.
And so it speaks to the power of this brand, Hodinkee, that exists in this place, that's responsible for a lot of the wonderful things that are happening right now in the watch space.
Yeah.
That could weather that storm. And that's impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny too, because, we'll this kind of ties into just like the state of the watch market.
Right.
And we've seen ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and, watches maybe becoming more accessible or not being accessible at all. And so I think it was the right time to kind of get out.
Yeah.
And then reassess and then hit it, on the head the second time around.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yo, Bezel just launched auctions?
Really?
Yeah, they did. You could bid on watches inside the app. They give you notifications on auction drops, and it's still authenticated. Oh, shoot, I won.
Yo, what you win?
Man, don't worry about me, man. Go download the app. Go visit getbezel.com.
Oh, come on, man.
Let's see. Moving on. Speaking of the watch market.
Yes.
State of the watch market. So I know in your position, you have a lot of friends.
Yes.
People always hitting you up asking you, what are people curious about right now? What's like the number one thing that people keep hitting you up about in terms of the watch market and what's happening?
Well, a lot of people reaching out to me are really talking about how it's softened.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that kind of did the same as everyone that was excited about watches. They kind of went head first.
Spent all their money.
Brought a bunch of watches, thought that they would get a return on their investment. And if I'm consulting with someone, I'm really talking to them about buying watches that they love, more than ones that they can flip.
Yeah.
I think it's great when you can buy a watch and, you can kind of laterally move into something else.
Yeah.
It's a culture that's been created in cars, in art, in real estate, and these monetary things, watches that we don't necessarily need, people kind of treated it the same way.
Right.
And so when it was hot, it made sense. Now that it's not, I think a lot of people are sweating.
Yeah. Well, yes. If you're holding, you're sweating.
Yes.
Right. If you're one of these people who have, bought any of these popular models at inflated prices, it doesn't feel so nice.
No.
To be able to look at this watch that you love and realize that you wasted a ton. Maybe not waste, but you lost some money on it.
You lost big money.
But at the end of the day, too, if you got what you wanted, doesn't really matter. You could afford it at the time. It is what it is.
Exactly.
But I think the valuable lesson there, and one of the things I always tell people is that you don't invest in watches. It's not an investment.
No.
Not in that way.
No.
I think there's definitely room to make plays. But I think you have to, have a game plan and really understand what you're buying and determine and define what that play is.
Yes.
You mentioned like getting into pieces and then moving out of them and into other pieces. That's something that I do pretty often.
Same.
I move a lot of watches around and I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going after, what I'm buying. In the event that maybe I could turn a watch into two watches or turn that into a bigger watch.
Yeah.
And, but at the same time, we have the privilege of speaking to dealers, big time collectors, and kind of understanding what's trending, what people are into.
Yeah.
And that obviously informs our decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other thing that's, on the positive side that's exciting right now is watches are becoming available again, to your point,
yes,
at authorized dealers.
Yes.
Maybe, those iconic models are still difficult to get, but I'm hearing stories of people getting Rolex GMTs.
Yes.
Simple date just OPs that they want.
Mm-hmm.
Even the case that I had a an acquaintance who recently told me they got a Batman on their first purchase.
Wow.
Okay, maybe it's still wild, but it's happening.
Yes.
And then, on top of that, additionally, the fact that like the secondary market prices have come down a bit. So if you are willing to pay a premium to get what you want right now, it hurts a lot less now than it did 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I was very interested in the idea of certified pre-owned.
Okay.
When you have Rolex getting into certified pre-owned, Moser even has a certified pre-owned section on their website. I think brands now want a piece of the pie. They want some of the action. And I think that it's very cool. It can put some people off, right? Because the price points maybe are at market or a little bit greater than market. And, when you walk into an authorized dealer, you go ahead and say, well, why are you selling this watch over sticker while still selling new watches?
Yeah.
So I think people aren't acclimating to it just yet.
Okay.
But I believe that they will. And you'll start to see the certified pre-owned market when it kind of transitions over and goes into gray market, right? For Rolex having that like that ivory or cream wax seal, right? Like now people are gonna ask, oh, where did this watch come from? Oh, it has the Rolex Certified Pre-Owned card when it was purchased,
right?
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the brands are now getting a piece of the action, and they're setting the standard. They're setting the precedent that if you are to buy secondary, you want to buy from someone trusted,
right?
And those trusted guys are going to continue to up their game with working with the brands to acquire certified pre-owned.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting thing. I was skeptical about how this would all play out when Rolex first took the step, but I think ultimately what I've seen is that this was really great for consumers.
Yeah.
And so you now have the benefit of walking into any authorized dealer that carries Rolex and CPO and purchasing a Rolex, even if it's pre-owned, that it comes with a warranty. It's peace of mind. It's been checked out by the brand. It's certified.
Brought back to brand new standard as well.
Brought back to brand new standards. You know what I'm saying? So you're getting a watch that's as close to what it would have been when it was initially released as possible. And then additionally, I think on the Rolex side, it strengthens their relationship with their consumers.
Yes.
Right. So now even after sales is part of the Rolex experience.
Yes.
And I think that's a powerful statement for any brand to make, is to be, because they're not making money off of CPO.
No.
Not in the way that people may think that they are, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously, it costs them money to certify these watches. They have different agreements with the authorized dealers.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're not involved in the transaction.
Yes.
Not in that way, but they are involved in the transaction from a branding perspective.
Yes.
And I think that's a really great lesson for a lot of different brands that, shout out to Moser for seeing that and taking that on. I hear Patek is working on something as well. But no, that was something that was really great for consumers. So what's nice is going back to, talking about the watch market, it seems like we're in a space right now where things are pivoting to be more advantageous for the collector, for the watch consumer, for that person looking to get into Rolex or any other brand. And I think that's a good place to be, right? Yes. When you can separate, the commerce side of it in terms of like flipping culture and stuff like that, it seems like there's an opportunity to get back to the passion of things. So the people that are still doing it really, really care about this hobby.
I agree.
Yeah. This episode of WCP is sponsored by Bezel, a trusted marketplace for buying and selling watches. With over 18,000 and counting watches listed from both private sellers and professional dealers, you have your pick of the litter from brands like Rolex, AP, Patek, and more. Bezel is one of the highest rated marketplaces for watches. Inside the Bezel app, you can make offers on watches, buy them outright, bid at auction, all with confidence knowing each timepiece is authenticated by an in-house team of experts. For more information, visit getbezel.com or search Bezel in the App Store and download the app today. We got some new watches on the docket.
Yes. Yeah.
Grand Seiko.
Oof.
Oh boy. So how do you feel about this? So they released two new watches.
Yes.
SBGA 507.
Yes.
SBGA 509.
Yes.
The reference means absolutely nothing to me. What was your initial thought about these two pieces?
I mean, if I could holler at the guys that make the decisions at Grand Seiko, I'd say stop the press. Or I'd say you guys got to chill. Limited edition after limited edition after limited edition, and then you're seeing the same print, like the same stamp dials, just over different colors, and then funny memes about the
Wagyu dial.
Exactly, Wagyu or spam or ham or whatever you want it to be.
The spam is hilarious.
Like it's almost like they aren't intentional anymore.
Yeah.
And Grand Seiko at one point, the value proposition in the provenance there was that they were very intentional. For when you think of Japanese culture, you think of like patience and poise. And the way that they're rolling out watches, it doesn't seem like there's any patience.
It's interesting. I mean, listen, I think for any watch brand, for any brand for that matter, if you're in the business of making products, you've always got to wrestle with, what you're known for, what you do best, what you accelerate at, and then balancing those two things with like freshness and newness. And it's tough. It's not easy. But I think they've fallen into a place where they're not doing anything that isn't expected anymore. The cool thing about Grand Seiko used to be like there was always a wow factor with the release. And, maybe that's not fair. I don't know. The last couple of years in the watch market have been crazy. There's always something exciting and new. But, obviously we love them for their approach to dial making. That's always where the most freshness and newness comes. But I think that, there's so many people now that are familiar with this brand.
Yes.
Right. It was different when it was like this like really niche brand that like you had to know about. And then when you met collectors, maybe people who were in GS9.
Yes.
They told you about Zaratsu finishing and all this stuff. Their dial making process was like, wow. But then after you learn to, expect these amazing things from the brand, they don't have the same punch or pack the same power as they did when you first discovered them. And I think collectors, people who love the brand are looking to them and it's like, okay, well, like, what else are you going to do? Are you just going to keep doing new dials? Are we getting some interesting cases? Are you doing anything with the bracelet? When they did the Kodo, that was such a powerful move for them because it's like, look at what we can do.
Yes.
And obviously was not expecting them to produce a bunch of Kodos for people.
Exactly.
But, there were different elements that were a part of that timepiece that would have been nice to see like kind of extrapolated out and say, we're going to do that here.
Yes.
We're going to do this there. Maybe we'll do a watch with the tourbillon for people that's a little more accessible. Maybe we'll do some skeletonized pieces over here with time only, experiment with, different things with the dial and stuff like that, that you don't see on those pieces. And I'm still waiting.
Yeah. They don't really. So what you see in prominent brands is that they always have a flagship piece.
Facts.
There will always be a North Star. There will always be a way to point to this is that.
Yep.
Grand Seiko had it with, the Shunbun. They had it with the Snowflake. They even redid it when they were introducing like the Lake Sua and the Peacock. And those were the watches that we got excited about.
Yeah.
And then they got overzealous.
Yep.
And so I think there's an opportunity for them to just have collectors live with their watches. Like just live with what's available to you now. Not we will continue to give you more because the masses ask for more.
Right.
So to their credit, right, they gave people what they wanted, which was more watches.
Sure.
But then it went to too many watches.
Yeah.
And
so it's that I'm let me cut you off, but you made an interesting point because I still don't own a Grand Seiko.
Yes.
And I want one.
Yeah. But you don't know which one to buy.
I don't know which one to buy.
You don't know which one to buy.
I have no idea. And there's so many great options, but they're all kind of very similar.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know what direction to go. There's too many choices that are almost like the same choice.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like when Grand Seiko is like almost like me approaching Grand Seiko and trying to figure out is like if Rolex only did GMTs.
Yes.
It's like, all right, which one am I gonna get? Now you have some people who want every single one.
Yes.
I don't.
No.
Right? I don't need this watch in every color. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get, merchandising and appealing to, different tastes and stuff like that. That's fine. But where do I even begin? Because even unlike the GMT Rolex Master 2, they're even more similar than those watches are similar.
Yes.
Right? In many cases, the case and the bracelet are almost exactly the same, but it's just the difference in dial color. And it's like, okay, I could go with that. But then it's like, that's good. That's good. I don't know.
Yeah. I think with Grand Seiko, right? You can have one and just live with that.
Yeah.
But then they always bring out something new. And then you're like, oh man, if I only waited, I would have got that one.
Right. Yeah. There's always that.
Which, I think people are kind of like pumping the brakes. They're waiting and they're saying, you know what? I'll wait until I find something to speak to me.
Right.
But if you're consistently dropping product, right, you don't give the masses the opportunity to like think. And so even with art, right?
Right.
Because, Perri, you have a amazing outlook on art and like how you perceive things. And in our new studio, right? Slight flex, right? There's a painting, right, where that we have that's not on camera that we were talking about, and you said the right thing. You were like, this is something that you got to sit with. Like, this provokes deep thought.
Right.
And then the funny thing is what you say, like, I don't know what I think about this right now, right? Because it can put you in a place now, but what will it do for you tomorrow?
No, it's true. Yeah. And I think that's kind of at least my issue that I have with Grand Seiko. I don't want to say like they don't have great options. They make fantastic watches.
They do.
But it's I guess I'm looking to be wowed again because there's so much in their catalog that's so similar that now I just want something that's so unlike any of those. Yeah. And it's tough to choose. But shout out to them. I hope to see some newness later this year. Maybe they have surprises for us. They still make beautiful watches. I'm still a fan.
Yes.
Moving along, Omega, the Olympics.
Yes.
New watch releases.
Yes. Yes.
So there was one that we knew about going in, right? The new 925 silver dial Omega watch that they did. It was a bronze gold case. I actually got to see this in person when I was in Miami a few weeks ago. I went to the boutique. Yes. And they had one to show me. It's a beautiful watch.
Not to buy though, right?
I think if I wanted it, they would have sold it to me.
Nice.
Yeah. But I didn't pull the trigger. But beautiful watch.
Yes.
It would have been really cool if it had an open case back. It doesn't. I understand why. They have the Olympic logo on the back.
Yes.
AKA the Mary J. Blige, which I thought was a funny thing that everyone thought the 2024 Paris Olympic logo looks like MJB.
Yes.
Beautiful watch.
Yes.
Fantastic timepiece. Home run on Omega's behalf.
Agreed.
And then they did something that I thought was really, really cool. And I feel like Omega is really getting in their bag, right? It feels like they're moving into a space where they're more in tune with where they should be going in terms of design for the future across the whole catalog. They're really in tune with their clientele. And I like the approach that they took to the Olympics with like these sort of like soft releases.
Yes.
And so we had the piece that Daniel Craig wore.
Yes.
The new Seamaster. And then there was this other new watch that they released that was on an actual athlete, on an Olympian.
Yeah. The ultralight.
The ultralight.
Yes. It's not, but you know, it's funny. It's not a new watch because they did release it, I think, back in like 2023.
Oh, yes, that's right. They did this piece before.
They did it before, and it was like in that ultralight case, right? With I think it had like a black and red strap.
Yeah.
Which, of course, I think at that price point fetched at like maybe like 50 grand. It was like
it's up there.
It was very, very high. I mean, please, if I'm botching the price point,
no, it's up there. I think it's like it's 51,000. Maybe it's 45. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's up there. It's in the 50 neighborhood.
Yeah, and so I think speaking about Omega is a great segue from Grand Seiko, right? Because Omega does it right? When they get in their bag and they release watches, they let people kind of live with it, right? Yeah. And you're able to say what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and then you can revisit it again before another watch is released.
Well, that's cool, right? Because like you're saying, revisit again. So this watch was released a couple of years back. I think people liked it when it was released, but it was kind of one of those things at that time you kind of forgot about it.
Yes.
And then this gentleman wearing it at the Olympics, it was great product placement.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like brought it back into the zeitgeist. Everyone's talking about it. It's universally agreed upon. It's an awesome timepiece.
Yes.
And contextually to have it with this Olympian just made a lot of sense because he's in the middle of doing something that you really don't need a watch to wear. But if you're going to wear one, this is perfect. I mean,
yes.
Titanium movement, like this thing is crazy.
You know, the coolest thing too is, you know, you're seeing brands kind of like go through the leaps and bounds of advancing their technology.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about shock resistance, you talk about accuracy and, you know, these, I won't say extreme, but like these like very high impact sports.
Right.
Is very impressive because
they're really the only other company that you see shown in that light is like Richard Mille.
Yeah, exactly. So that's funny too, because I would have to say RM, well, definitely Omega because it's their event, right? They're the official timekeepers. Like Omega and RM really stole the show.
They did.
Most of the athletes that competed were either wearing Omega or RM.
That's so funny, yeah, when you say it that way. It's interesting for them to be, and maybe not on the same level, but they're existing in the same space.
Yes,
I thought was a really smart move on their behalf, and they really own the Olympics. I mean, it is their event, it's their global event.
Yes,
you know, people wait every 4 years for this thing. And they wait to see what Omega is going to bring to the table. And they're having a really killer year. I mean, you got the new Speedmaster with the white dial that was released, right? This new Daniel Craig piece everyone's talking about. Surely it's going to be a hit. You know, you've got all the new, you know, sort of reinvigorated moon swatches that they've released.
Yes.
All of which incredibly popular.
Yes.
So just from a brand perspective, they're having a really, really great time. They're, you know, they've created some really great marketing campaigns behind all of this. Even when I visited, you know, the boutique in Miami, on the side of the boutique, which was like an empty lot, they converted it into like a track and field space. Like it's all branded Omega, and it was awesome. Like kids were playing there,
Yeah.
families were there having a great time.
Yeah.
Kudos to Omega.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else they do this year. I did get a chance to actually see the new White Dial Speedmaster in person a couple of weeks ago. Initially, when I saw it, I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It is pretty cool.
And I hate to say that it's like a Daytona alternative.
Yeah.
But in some ways, like, it is.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yes.
It's good.
I agree.
Shout out to Omega.
Yes, yes.
What else do you want to talk about? What else do we got here?
You know what? Since we're talking about these watch brands and how significant they are, I think something that people would love to hear, especially coming from us, is like, what we look for in watch brands, what we look to see, what gets us excited, what do we collect, how do we collect, because there's so many layers to the idea of collecting, or even saying that you like a specific watch.
Sure.
And for me, I think I kind of start with first the emotional connection. When I see the watch, what do I think? And then I can maybe, and for others, right? For some people, they may say, well, what will other people think?
Right.
And for me, I may not be thinking about what other people may think. I may be thinking about what is the story I want to tell in wearing this watch.
Interesting.
And so if I put a watch on and someone asks me, like, tell me about this watch, you want to be able to kind of get people to see your vision, your thought process.
Sure.
Especially for us as, content creators and people that share media, right? Mm-hmm. It's the question that we get asked the most is, what do you think?
Yeah, that's true. It's so funny.
So I really enjoy watches that give me an emotional connection, and then also can tie into what you're talking about, right? Omega doing the activation in Miami, right? Miami, of course, isn't the place where you'll see a ton of Omegas, right? Because you'll see Richard Milles and Rolexes and Pateks. You'll see like those flex watches, especially down there in South Beach. But for them to go ahead and create this activation, get people involved, right? Because it's surrounded around a world event.
Yeah.
One that brings pride, right?
Sure.
When you talk about, anything that you invest your time in, you want to have pride in it. Mm-hmm. And so if you're able to connect the two, there's American pride. There's the pride of owning a watch, the pride of being able to afford a watch.
Sure.
So many things that can tie into why people should even open their wallet to buy these things.
That's an excellent point. I think for me, that's a really great question. Like, why do you collect and, what you collect? For me, I like the idea of things that are lived, in the sense of like, I have a thing for vintage, and I think it's because I like story and storytelling.
Yeah.
I always think back to like this interview that Ralph Lauren had with Charlie Rose, where he was describing like the Ralph Lauren brand. Mm-hmm. And he talks to Charlie and he's like, if you were to wear, a 3-piece suit, on a farm in the middle of Ohio, mm-hmm. so it doesn't really feel right, mm-hmm. right? You wouldn't feel right.
Yeah.
And he's like, but if you put on your old overalls, you throw on a flannel, some boots,
yeah,
and you go out on your farm, you feel like a farmer.
Yeah.
It feels appropriate.
Yeah.
And I kind of have that approach to watch collecting. It's not that I'm trying to fit any particular persona, mm-hmm. but I do like the feeling that I get when I throw on any particular watch in my collection. It makes me think about that piece contextually. Mm-hmm. I think about what I'm wearing that day and how it fits. I think about my day.
Yeah.
who I'm meeting with, who I'm speaking to, maybe what event I'm going to. And it's not to show off, but it's more so of the mood it puts me in.
Yeah.
You know, with sort of everything that I own. It's all about creating a vibe. And I carry that vibe and that feeling and that spirit, that energy with me. And so it's really about energy, I think, and the feeling that I get when I first see a watch, where it was like, even with this one, like I've always wanted a perpetual. You know, I think most people go for a 3940. And I was like, that's great. 3940 is an incredible timepiece. But when the 5140 came up, to me, it was kind of like, this makes a little bit more sense for me. The situation was right in terms of how I acquired it. So there wasn't any issues there. But also I was like, you know, 3940 is a lot older. Perpetual calendar is a little intimidating to own. It probably makes more sense for me to own the watch that Patek put forward as like the new and improved version of the 3940. And so the 5140 was great for me. And they've released perpetuals after that, but I like the 5140 because it most closely resembles the 3940.
Yes.
And so it's a reference that I really, really like. And it turns out it's probably my favorite watch to wear right now.
Looks good.
I love this thing. Most people don't know what it is. I wear it on the subway.
Yeah.
I wear it outside. No one cares. I love that. I get to enjoy it for me. If I run into someone who does recognize it and they ask questions about it, it's someone who I can have like a really great conversation with, a person that I probably want to get to know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other flip side to collecting that I really enjoy too, where it's like the opportunities that you are afforded in terms of just meeting people. You know, this podcasting thing is an endeavor that we chose to undertake. And part of the reason why I enjoy it so much is because we get to have so many amazing and interesting guests on the show. And I really, really enjoy that. And watches have helped me bridge that gap. Additionally, I have a great amount of respect for watchmakers.
Yeah.
And the time and the effort they've put into mastering their craft. And to be able to flip over a watch like this and look through the exhibition case back and look at the movement. I appreciate it on that level too, you know, and I'm thankful that exhibition case backs are a thing that allow us to actually do that.
Yes.
You know, you can't do that with most Rolexes, but Rolex seems to get it now. And now you can do it on the Daytona, you know, if you're, you know, in a great position to be able to acquire that watch, go for it.
Yes.
You know, it's not so much that you're looking at that movement and comparing, you know, who has the better movements, but you get to actually look into the watch and appreciate the time and the effort and the years that have gone into getting it from, you know, the Daytonas of yesterday to the Daytona of today.
Agreed.
And that's part of the philosophy that I have in collecting. I also, you know, I like to find things that are obscure.
Yeah.
Because I like to learn. You know, if I see something that I don't know anything about, I'm intrigued. I dive all the way in. Yeah. And it's just a fun process. And, you know, I mean, look at it. Like, we got to meet Nori.
Yes.
From, you know, that happened through watches. That didn't happen from, you know, us pursuing some, you know, music career or just pursuing a celebrity. It was a genuine interaction that happened because of, you know, our passion about timepieces and timekeeping. Yeah. And the same way in which we met Ben Clymer, had him on the show, and our friends Eric Wynn, and how all this all came about. So
Larry June.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's this thing is, I don't really like advising people on what to get. Yeah. You know, I try not to influence anyone's opinion. They say, hey, what do you think of this? I'll say how I feel about it, but ultimately what you feel about it is most important. Yes. And I'm not a watch snob in any way. Yeah. You know, if you love Invictas, it's fantastic. Yeah. I can't wait to have an Invicta collector on the show. I'm very curious.
That'll be very interesting.
Curious to hear what it is they love about this brand so much.
Yes.
And so, you know, I think there's something for everyone, and it's just an incredible hobby to have the privilege to be part of. It's an incredible community. And that makes it all that much more rich.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
This was fun.
Yeah.
This is, I guess we can call this Rashawn's Corner. I don't know.
Maybe.
Thank you all for listening. You guys know where to find us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, audio, video, YouTube, wristcheckpod.com, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more to come.
Yeah.
Maybe
one day in the metaverse.
Another episode of Wrist Check Pod. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Peace.
Peace.